Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my first impressions review of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. So I say first impressions review, but let's be completely honest here. I'm not going to be talking about much of the actual content of the episode here. And that may sound disappointing to some of you, but the reason for that is kind of the same reason I won't kind of do that with The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit when talking about them to other people. I want people to experience this for themselves. And I compare it specifically to the other Tolkien works within this kind of framework because I feel that this series, despite, different people working behind the scenes and everything, and obviously a different time period of which to draw the focus of the series on, it feels a lot like those original movies or books, whichever you prefer to take in the context through. Um, and I went into this as a fan of mainly the films. I've read the books, but I prefer the films. I might be one of the few people who will say that. Um, and that's knowing what like things that the films left out and everything. But it's a personal preference of mine. But even going into this, knowing all that, there's a lot about this world that I don't know. Like I've never read the Silmarillion or whatnot. I don't know a lot of just the general histories beyond, you know, the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit movies and book. So my knowledge of the greater Middle Earth histories is almost non existent. So I went into this in a very different mindset than some people might. Some people might go into this knowing a lot more. Some people might go into this knowing just a lot more about the actual Lord of the Rings and Hobbit than I do. And that's fine. I'm more of a casual fan, you could say, of Tolkien's works. That being said, um, I'll tell you a few things about this, but I'm not going to go into depth. I'm not going to. This is going to be non spoilery. It's not going to reveal much of anything about the actual content of the first episode, which is what I've seen so far. And again, the point is that I want you all to experience this yourself, form your own thoughts, but also just to, experience it for yourself. I don't want to ruin that for anyone. I will say that my just general thoughts are I have to see more. I'm not I can't at this moment say whether or not I like it. I genuinely have to see more. But I can tell you there are things I like about it. So again, I won't go into heavy detail. I won't go into like plot spoilers or anything. But I will say part of the story does revolve around Galadriel, uh, who is, from the main series and everything. Um, and they do a really strong job at how they write her and how they portray her in this first episode. She's she steals the show, honestly. Um she's definitely the star of the show with this first episode, and in my eyes just completely runs away with it. It's like every time she's not on screen or the focus of what's going on, you want her to be. At least from my experience. There's some other stories going on during this, um, and they're honestly not as interesting to me. Um, there's one in particular. Again, I won't go into the details about, but it's kind of shares the spotlight in a lot of regards, and honestly, it's kind of boring, if I'm being in all honest, comparatively. Um, it just it doesn't do as much for me as Galadriel's story. Um, Obviously, like everyone's seen like the shots and the trailers and all. It's visually stunning. Like this, honestly looks like it was done in the same breath as the movies. It's that visually stunning. It looks phenomenal. Costume and makeup looks phenomenal. It looks like what you would expect it to look like as part of Lord of the Rings, as part of just the Tolkien universe. Um, the actors are all doing a fantastic job. I have no issue with any of them. The soundtrack, everything in that regard is fantastic. My biggest issue is just there's a lot to keep track of in this first episode alone, and that's to be expected with the Tolkien story. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, both had a lot to keep track of, and there's a lot that I forget. Just being completely honest, so that's not unexpected that I go into this and it's like, oh, it's hard to keep track of everything, but maybe with multiple rewatches, because I'll definitely rewatch it with different reactors and stuff. Maybe that'll help. I'm just saying that it's it's a lot, and there's especially some lore stuff that can get pretty. It can be a lot to get everything down in one watch, which is again what I've had so far, a single viewing. Um, and like I said, it's hard to say exactly what my thoughts are on it based on this single viewing. Because again, there's things I've probably forgotten already, things I've probably missed, things I just need to see again to fully grasp. Um, if I were to say something, if I were to like give some sort of idea of what I thought about it, it's like I liked it, I enjoyed watching it. Um, Again, at least most of it, pretty much everything when Galadriel is focused on. Um, but it's just like even the stuff otherwise, it's like was still good, was still entertaining. It just wasn't as good and entertaining to me. And it's just something that I cannot rightly say for absolute certainty on a single viewing if I truly loved it or not. And I know like two episodes were released at once or whatnot, but I'm only discussing the first episode here simply because they're an hour long each. I just didn't want to get to both of them right away, if I'm being honest. But yeah, like on pretty much every technical level, it hits all the marks. Again, the production work is phenomenal. It mostly comes down to the story and the characters and how well you can connect to them, how well you can just hook your feelers in right off the bat. And again, for me, I very much enjoyed it, but I cannot say like full thoughts or like full opinions or anything until I've seen it at least once more. Um, but I will say, if you are a fan of the Tolkien properties, if you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies and books, I would definitely suggest checking this out. It definitely is going to feel like the movies. At least for me, it very much did. Um, And honestly, I think that it really succeeded in just feeling in general like a Tolkien story. I don't know how original this is. I don't know if like this is a fully original story with original lore and everything, or if it is based off of a specific work or whatnot or works. I don't know. Because again, I'm a casual Tolkien fan. I'm not super familiar with the stuff outside of directly The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So any of the extended stuff, I don't know really much of anything about. But even though I've barely said anything about this, other than just my general thoughts on it all, I would still love to hear your thoughts. Um, Please feel free to comment down below and tell me what you thought going into this and what you thought seeing it, how you think it compares to the other adaptations of Tolkien's works and whatnot. And yeah, maybe in the future, if I feel like it warrants another look through a review, maybe in the future I can do another one. If I feel it deserves another look and really there's something I can say about it, you know? But that all being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.